The mop moved across the floor in slow, steady strokes. Back and forth. Back and forth. Kong Tae-ho watched the dirty water spread and then disappear, leaving the metal surface clean and shining. He had done this 1,000 times before. Maybe 10,000? He had stopped counting years ago. The corridor of Veltrix Station stretched ahead of him like a long silver tunnel. Aliens walked past him without looking. Their eyes moved over him like he was part of the wall. Just another piece of equipment. Just another thing that cleaned up their mess. Tae-ho preferred it this way. A group of Kellen soldiers marched past him. Their boots hit the floor with perfect rhythm. Their bodies were tall and covered in thick gray skin. Their eyes glowed a soft yellow. They were the Galactic Guard, the most feared warriors in the known galaxy. Each one had been trained since birth to kill. Their bones had been made stronger through surgery. Their reflexes had been made faster through genetic changes. They were weapons in living form. They did not look at Tae-ho. Why would they? He was just a human. A small, weak creature from a small, weak planet. Humans had only joined the Galactic Federation 15 years ago, and most aliens still thought of them as barely intelligent animals. Tae-ho dipped his mop back into the bucket and kept working. He was 34 years old. His hair was cut short, and there was gray in it now. His face was plain and forgettable. His body was thin but not weak. If anyone looked closely, they might notice the scars on his hands. They might notice the way his eyes were always moving, always watching. But nobody looked closely at janitors. That was the point. Tae-ho had been a soldier once, back on Earth, during the Contact Wars, when the aliens first came and everything changed. He had watched his friends die in fire and blood. He had survived alone in enemy territory for 11 months. Eating insects and drinking rainwater, killing anyone who found him. When they finally rescued him, the doctor said it was a miracle. They said no human should have survived that long. But Tae-ho had survived. He always survived. That was his curse. After the war, he could not stay on Earth. There were too many ghosts there. So he came to the stars, found the most boring job he could, and tried to forget. For 6 years, he had pushed this cart and cleaned these floors and spoken to almost no one. It was a good life. A quiet life. A life without blood. The sound of shouting broke his thoughts. Tae-ho looked up. Near the end of the corridor, a circle of Galactic Guard soldiers had formed. In the middle of them stood a young human worker. His name was Yoon Jaemin. He was maybe 20 years old, fresh from Earth, still believing that the galaxy was full of wonders. Commander Vorn stood in front of him. Vorn was the leader of the guard unit on this station. He was taller than the others, and his gray skin was covered in ritual scars. His yellow eyes burned with contempt.
Ow.
You walked in front of me, Vorn said. His voice was like stones grinding together. You made me change my path. Do you think you are my equal, human? Jaemin's face was pale with fear. I am sorry, Commander. I did not see you. I was just going to my workstation, and I did not mean to. Vorn struck him across the face. The young man fell to the floor. The other soldiers laughed. You did not see me? Vorn grabbed Jaemin by the collar and lifted him up. Then perhaps I should remove your eyes. You clearly do not need them. Tae-ho's hands tightened around the mop handle. His knuckles went white. Inside his chest, something old and dark began to wake up. Something he had buried long ago. He took one step forward. Then he stopped. He closed his eyes and took a slow breath. When he opened them again, his hands were relaxed. His face was empty. He turned and walked away, pushing his cart down a side corridor. He found a storage room and sat down on a crate. His heart was beating too fast. His hands wanted to shake, but he would not let them. The door opened. A woman stepped inside. Lee Sora was 29 years old. She worked as a medic on the station, one of the few humans with a real job instead of service work. She had short black hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. She was also the only person on this station that Tae-ho called a friend. I saw you, she said. I saw your eyes when Vorn hit that boy. Tae-ho did not answer. Sora sat down next to him. I know you wanted to do something. I know what you are thinking, but you cannot. You are not that man anymore, Tejo. You left that man behind on Earth. Tejo looked at his hands. They were clean now. They had been clean for 6 years. I know who I am, he said quietly. Sora studied his face for a long moment. Then she nodded and stood up. Good. Keep it that way. Stay invisible. Stay safe. She left him alone in the storage room. That night, Tejo lay in his small bed in the workers' quarters. He stared at the ceiling and listened to the hum of the station around him. Sleep would not come. It rarely did. Then the alarm started. Red lights flashed. A loud siren filled the air. Tejo sat up and looked at the screen on his wall. Emergency broadcast. A terrorist group called the Red Veil had taken hostages in the lower decks. They had bombs. They were demanding the release of prisoners. The Galactic Guard was responding. Tejo walked to his window and looked out at the corridor. He could see guard soldiers running past, their weapons ready. They moved with perfect confidence. They believed they were the most dangerous things on this station. Tejo watched them go. His hands were no longer shaking. In fact, they were completely still, calmer than they had been in years. Somewhere deep inside him, the old darkness opened its eyes. The station went into full lockdown. Heavy metal doors slammed shut across every corridor. The lights turned red. The air itself seemed to grow thick with fear. Tejo was trapped in Sector 7. This was the maintenance level, where the janitors and cleaners and repair workers lived. It was the lowest part of the station, the part that the important aliens never visited. Now it was a cage. About 15 other workers were trapped here with him. Most of them were human. They gathered in the main service room, their faces pale, their voices shaking. What is happening? Did you hear the explosions? The Red Veil. They said they will kill everyone if their demands are not met. Tejo stood in the corner and listened. He did not join the talking. He was busy thinking. The door opened and Sora ran in. She was breathing hard. There was blood on her medical coat, but it was not hers. I was in the medical bay when it started, she said. They came through the walls, through the service tunnels. They knew exactly where to go. She looked at Tejo. They took Director Hala. She is one of the hostages. Director Hala was the head administrator of Veltric Station. She was one of the few aliens who treated humans with respect. If she died, life on this station would become much worse for everyone like Tejo. A young worker spoke up. The Galactic Guard will save her. They are the best soldiers in the galaxy. As if answering him, a voice came through the speakers. It was Commander Vorn. Attention all station personnel. The Galactic Guard is handling this situation. We have attempted a breach of the terrorist position. We will attempt again. All humans are ordered to stay where they are and not interfere with superior warriors. You will only make things worse. The message ended. Sora laughed bitterly. Attempted a breach. That means they failed. Tejo walked to a computer terminal in the corner. He entered his maintenance codes and began to access the station systems. His fingers moved quickly across the screen. What are you doing? Sora asked, looking. The screen filled with data. Security reports. Communication logs. Emergency updates. Tejo read through them with fast eyes. The picture became clear in his mind. The Red Veil terrorists had entered through the service tunnels. They had set up bombs in 12 locations across the station. The hostages were being held in Storage Bay 19, deep in the lower levels. The Galactic Guard had tried to attack 3 times. Each time, they were pushed back. 14 guard soldiers were dead. The terrorists knew the attack routes and had set traps, and the hostages would be executed in 6 hours. If the demands were not met, Tejo stared at the map of the station. The service tunnels. He knew them better than anyone. He had cleaned every pipe, every duct, every forgotten corner of this station for 6 years. He knew paths that were not on any map. He knew ways to move that no one else knew. The Galactic Guard was attacking through the main corridors. They were walking into kill zones. They did not understand that there were other ways. Faster ways. Secret ways. Ways that only a janitor would know. Sora appeared at his shoulder. She looked at the screen, then at his face. Her expression changed. "No," she said quietly. "Tahoe, no," he did not answer. "You cannot be thinking about going in there. They are trained terrorists. The Galactic Guard cannot stop them." "What makes you think you can?" Tahoe closed the screen. He turned and walked toward his locker at the back of the room. Sora followed him. "Talk to me," she demanded. "Tell me you are not going to do something stupid." Tahoe opened his locker. Inside were his extra uniforms, his cleaning supplies, his personal items. And at the bottom, under everything else, was an old metal toolbox. He pulled it out and set it on the bench. He opened it. On top were wrenches and screwdrivers and other normal things. He removed them. Beneath them, wrapped in old cloth, were other items. A combat knife, broken down into 3 pieces. A thin wire with handles on each end. A garrote, a small medical kit with items that were not standard issue. Sora stared at the hidden weapons. She had always known that Tahoe had a past. He had told her a little late at night when the darkness made it easier to speak, but seeing the proof made it real in a different way. "Tahoe," her voice was barely a whisper. "What were you?" He began to assemble the knife. His hands moved with the easy skill of long practice. "I was a survivor. That is all. Those weapons. That is not survival. That is something else." He slid the knife into a holder and strapped it to his leg, hidden under his uniform pants. The garrote went into his pocket. The medical kit went into the pouch on his belt. He was still wearing his janitor uniform. He had no armor, no gun, no backup. "The guard will keep failing," he said. "They do not know the tunnels. They will keep dying, and in 6 hours the hostages will be killed. Director Hala will be killed. And then what? More humans will suffer. More people like Jamin will be beaten and humiliated because the one alien who protected us is gone. So you are going to save her? Alone." Tahoe looked at Sora. His eyes were calm. "To calm, I am going to try." He walked toward the ventilation shaft in the corner of the room. It was big enough for a man to crawl through. He had used it many times for maintenance work. Sora grabbed his arm. "You might die in there. I might. And you are going anyway?" He gently removed her hand. "Lock the door behind me. Do not let anyone follow. If I am not back in 5 hours, tell them what happened. Or do not. It does not matter." He pulled the cover off the ventilation shaft and looked into the darkness beyond. Tahoe Sora's voice cracked. "Come back." He did not answer. He climbed into the shaft and disappeared into the shadows. The cover slid back into place behind him. The invisible man was going to war. The ventilation shaft was dark and narrow. Tahoe moved through it on his hands and knees, making no sound. His body remembered how to do this. It remembered many things he had tried to forget. He reached a junction where 3 shafts met. He paused and listened. Through the metal walls, he could hear distant gunfire. The Galactic Guard was making another attempt. They would fail again. Tahoe turned left and kept moving. The service tunnels of Beltrix Station were like blood vessels in a body. They carried air and water and power to every part of the station. Most people did not know they existed. But Tahoe had spent 6 years inside them. He knew every turn, every drop, every hidden passage. He knew where the tunnels were old and weak. He knew where they connected 2 forgotten storage rooms. He knew the station's secrets better than the station itself. After 20 minutes of crawling, he reached a grate that looked down into a corridor. Through the metal bars, he saw 2 terrorists standing guard. They were Vexen, a species with purple skin and 4 arms. Each arm held a weapon. Tahoe studied them. Their positions, their sight lines. The way they shifted their weight, then he moved. The grate opened without a sound. He dropped behind the first guard before either could react. The garrote was around the Vexen's throat in less than a second. Tahoe pulled tight and twisted. There was a wet crack. The terrorist went limp. The second guard turned, but Tahoe was already moving. He threw the dying body into the guard, knocking him off balance. Before the Vexen could raise his weapons, Tahoe's knife found the soft A spot under his chin. Both terrorists were dead in under 4 seconds. Tahoe dragged the bodies to a waste compactor and pushed them inside. He cleaned the blood from the floor with a rag from his pocket. Old habits. He kept moving. The memories came whether he wanted them or not. Earth. The contact wars. A burned city filled with alien soldiers hunting for survivors. Tahoe had been 23 years old, a young soldier who had never seen real combat. Within a week, his entire unit was dead. Within a month, he had become something else. He remembered the first alien he killed with his bare hands. He remembered the way the fear left him, and something colder took its place. He remembered learning that he was good at this. Very good. That was the worst part. Not the killing. The fact that it came so easily. 11 months alone. 47 confirmed kills. When they finally rescued him, the military psychologists said he was broken. They said he would never be normal again. They were right. Tahoe pushed the memories down and focused on the present. He was approaching the area where the hostages were held. According to his mental map, Storage Bay 19 was just ahead. But there would be more guards. Many more. He needed a distraction. He found what he was looking for in a maintenance control room. A coolant system that fed into the next section. He accessed the controls and began to make changes. 3 minutes later, alarms began to sound in Section 12. Coolant leak. Temperature critical. The alarms were loud and urgent. Through the walls, Tahoe heard shouting. Footsteps running. Guards leaving their positions to check on the emergency. He smiled and kept moving. Far above him, in the command center of the Galactic Guard, Captain Wren was watching her screens with growing confusion. She was second in command to Vorn. She was tall and strong, like all Kellen, but there was something different in her eyes. Something that questioned instead of just obeyed. Commander, she said, we are losing contact with Red Veil units in Sector 7. Vorn barely looked up. Equipment failure. The explosions damaged the communication systems. Sir, it is not just communications. The units themselves are going silent. No distress calls. No alerts. They are simply disappearing. Vorn made an annoyed sound. Then the cowards are abandoning their posts. It does not matter. Focus on the main assault. Wren looked at her screens. 6 terrorist units had gone dark in the last 30 minutes. All in Sector 7. All in the maintenance areas. The pattern was not random. Someone was hunting them. But who? In Storage Bay 19, Tahoe found a way inside. A broken air duct that led to a space above the ceiling. He crawled through the dust and darkness until he found a gap in the panels. Through it, he could see the hostages below. There were 30 of them sitting on the floor with their hands bound. Alien species of all kinds. And in the center, her white hair stained with blood, was Director Hala. She was an Orin, a species known for their wisdom and fairness. She had fought for human rights in the Federation Council. She had made Veltrix Station one of the few places where humans were treated almost as equals. She looked tired. She looked scared. But she was alive. Tay-Ho counted the guards. 8 terrorists watching the hostages. Too many to fight directly. He needed to get closer. Needed to find another way. He moved along the ceiling until he was directly above Hala. Then, carefully, he removed a small ceiling panel and lowered himself down behind a stack of storage containers. He was 3 meters from her. He picked up a small piece of debris and threw it. It landed near Hala's feet. She looked up, confused. Tahoe raised one finger to his lips. Hala's eyes went wide. She stared at him. He saw recognition slowly fill her face. The human janitor. The one who cleaned her office every morning. The one she always said hello to. Even when other aliens ignored him, she opened her mouth to speak. But Tahoe shook his head sharply. He pointed to himself, then to her, then to the exit behind the containers. The message was clear. I am getting you out. Hala stared at him for a long moment. Then, slowly, she nodded. Tejo began to plan his next move. 8 guards, 30 hostages, 1 exit. No room for mistakes. This was going to be difficult, but difficult was what Tejo did best. The terrorist leader found the bodies. Kel was a Voroth, a species known for their cruelty and their love of war. His face was covered in old scars, each one a memory of violence. He had led the Red Veil for 12 years. He had killed soldiers, politicians, and innocents. Nothing surprised him anymore, but this surprised him. 12 of his soldiers were dead, not killed in battle, not shot from a distance. They had been taken apart in the dark, one by one. With weapons that left no trace except blood, Kel crouched beside the last body and studied the wounds. A knife, a wire, bare hands. Whoever did this was not using guns. They were getting close, personal. He smiled slowly. It was not a pleasant smile. "We have a hunter on this station," he said to his soldiers. "Someone is playing in the shadows. Find them. Bring me their head." Send his best killers into the maintenance tunnels. 10 soldiers, heavily armed, trained in close combat. They moved in pairs, checking every corner, every vent, every hiding spot. They did not understand that they were walking into the hunter's territory. Tejo heard them coming. The service tunnels carried sound in strange ways, and he had learned to read them like words on a page. 5 pairs of footsteps. Military formation. They were searching for him. He could not avoid them. The tunnels here were too narrow, too straight. He would have to go through them. The first pair came around a corner and found Tejo standing in the middle of the passage. They raised their weapons. They never fired. Tejo grabbed a steam pipe on the wall and pulled. Hot steam exploded into the corridor, filling the air with white fog. The terrorists screamed as the burning vapor hit their skin. Tejo was already moving, slipping past them, his knife finding throats and arteries. The second pair came running. Tejo grabbed an electrical conduit and tore it from the wall, throwing it into the water that covered the floor from the steam. The electricity did its work. The third pair was smarter. They hung back and fired into the corridor blindly. Tejo pressed himself into a service alcove and waited. When they stopped to reload, he threw his knife. It spun through the air and buried itself in the first terrorist's eye. He was on the second one before the body hit the ground. The fourth pair tried to run. They did not get far. The fifth pair never saw him at all. He dropped from a ventilation shaft above them and finished it in seconds. 10 soldiers. 3 minutes. Tejo stood alone in the corridor, breathing hard, covered in blood that was not his own. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. From something else? Something that felt too much like excitement. He closed his eyes and forced himself to be calm. This was not who he wanted to be. But right now, it was who he needed to be. He kept moving toward the hostages in the medical bay. Sora had found a way to access the security cameras. She watched the screens with wide eyes as Tejo cut through the terrorists like a machine. She had known he was dangerous. She had seen hints of it in the way he moved, the way his eyes were always watching. But this was different. This was a man who had turned violence into an art form. She felt afraid of him, and proud of him, and sad for him. All at the same time, Captain Wren was also watching. She had finally convinced Vorn to let her investigate the strange disappearances in Sector 7. She had tracked the pattern, followed the trail of dead terrorists. And now she was closing in on the source. She found Tejo in a corridor near Storage Bay 19. He was checking his weapons, preparing for the final approach to the hostages. He heard her coming. He turned, his knife ready, his eyes cold. Wren stopped. She kept her weapon pointed at him, but she did not fire. For a long moment, they just looked at each other. The elite Kellen warrior and the human janitor, one trained since birth to be perfect, the other trained by desperation to be deadly. "You killed 11 armed soldiers," Wren said slowly. "Alone. With no armor. No guns. Just a knife in your hands." Taeho did not move. I had weapons. You just did not recognize them. Really looked. She saw the scars on his hands. The way he held himself, balanced and ready. The emptiness in his eyes that spoke of too much death. What are you? She asked a janitor. Do not play games with me, human. Your kind is supposed to be weak, fragile. You are supposed to be nothing. But you, she shook her head. You are not nothing. Taeho lowered his knife slowly. Are you going to shoot me? Ren hesitated. She thought about Vorn's orders. Humans were not supposed to interfere. They were supposed to stay hidden and let the superior species handle everything. But the superior species was failing. And this human, this janitor, was succeeding. She lowered her weapon. Oh, the hostages, she said. Where are they? Taeho studied her face for a long moment. Then he nodded. I will show you. But we need to move fast. Kel knows someone is hunting his soldiers. He will be ready. What do you need from me? A distraction. Attack from the front. Draw their fire. I will go from behind. He paused. Can you trust me? Ren thought about everything she had been taught. Humans were inferior. Humans were weak. Humans were nothing. But everything she had been taught was wrong. Will trust you, she said. Do not make me regret it. They moved together through the corridors, the hunter and the soldier, planning their attack. Ren would lead a guard team through the main entrance. Taeho would use the service tunnels to get behind Kel's forces. Together, they would free the hostages. It was a good plan. Simple and direct. Then Kel's voice came over the station speakers. I know you are coming, he said. His voice was calm and cold. I know someone has been killing my soldiers. Very impressive, but it changes nothing. There was a click, and then a new sound. A countdown. I have activated the dead man switch, Kel continued. In 10 minutes, every bomb on this station will explode. The only way to stop it is to reach the control room. But to do that, you will have to go through me. And I promise you, I will not be as easy to kill as my soldiers. The countdown echoed through the station. 9 minutes 59 seconds. 9 minutes 58 seconds. Taeho looked at Ren. She looked back at him. Change of plans, he said. We go now. He started running. 8 minutes on the clock. Ren gathered her soldiers at the main entrance to the control center. 12 galactic guards. The best she had left. They were tired and scared, but they were ready. We go in hard and fast, she told them. Draw their fire. Keep them focused on us. One of her soldiers looked confused. Captain, what about the human? The janitor? What is his role? Ren checked her weapon. He is going to end this. The soldier wanted to argue. A human, ending what the Galactic Guard could not. It was impossible. It was insulting, but Ren had seen what the human could do. She had seen the bodies he left behind. She no longer believed in impossible. Move out, she ordered. 7 minutes, Taeho was already in the walls. He climbed through the ventilation system above the control center, moving fast but silent. Below him, he could hear Kel giving orders to his remaining soldiers. 20 terrorists, armed and ready, waiting for the attack. The ceiling shook as Ren's team hit the main door. Explosions, gunfire, screaming. Kel laughed. Let them come. They will die like all the others. But his soldiers were focused on the front. They were watching the door. They were not watching the ceiling. Tae-Ho found his entry point. A maintenance hatch directly above Kel's position. He pulled out his knife and waited. 6 minutes. The Galactic Guard pushed through the door. Ren was in front, her weapon firing. 3 of her soldiers fell in the first seconds. But they kept coming, forcing the terrorists to focus on them. Tae-Ho dropped. He came down from the ceiling like a shadow. His knife found the first terrorist before anyone knew he was there, then the second, then the third. He moved through them like water through rocks, always where they were not looking, always one step ahead. Kel turned and saw him. The terrorist leader's eyes went wide. "You," he breathed. "The ghost in the tunnels. The one who killed my soldiers?" Tahoe did not answer. He was too busy fighting. 5 minutes, Kel was not like his soldiers. He was fast. He was strong. He had been fighting his whole life, and he had never lost. He attacked Tahoe with savage fury. His fists were like hammers. His kicks could break bones. He had killed dozens of opponents in close combat. Tahoe took the punishment. Kel hit him in the face. Tahoe stumbled but did not fall. Kel kicked him in the ribs. Tahoe felt something crack, but he kept moving. Kel grabbed him by the throat and lifted him off the ground.
"Oh, what are you?"
Kel demanded. "What makes you think you can fight me? I was trained since birth to kill. I am perfection, and you are just a human. You are nothing." Tahoe grabbed Kel's wrist. His vision was going dark. He could not breathe, but he could still move. He brought his knee up into Kel's elbow. The joint bent the wrong way. Kel screamed and dropped him. Tahoe hit the ground and rolled. He came up with his knife in his hand. 4 minutes. "You want to know what I am?" Tahoe said. His voice was rough from the choking. "I am a janitor. I clean up messes." He attacked. Kel fought back with his good arm, but he was hurt now, slowed by pain. Tahoe was not fast. He was not strong, but he was relentless. Every time Kel knocked him down, he got back up. Every time Kel hurt him, he kept coming. 3 minutes. Tahoe got inside Kel's guard. His knife slashed across the terrorist's chest. Kel swung wildly, but Tahoe ducked under the blow and drove his elbow into Kel's wounded arm. Kel fell to his knees, screaming. Tahoe grabbed his broken arm and twisted. The sound was terrible. "The bombs," Tahoe said. "Shut them down." "Never." 2 minutes. Tahoe twisted harder. Kel screamed again. "I have lost a lot of things," Tahoe said quietly. "My friends, my home, my peace. I have nothing left to lose. Do you understand? I will break every bone in your body if I have to. I will take you apart piece by piece. And I will enjoy it because I have tried so hard to be good, and you have given me permission to stop." There was something in his eyes. Something cold and empty and absolutely serious. Kel looked into those eyes and saw his death. The console, he gasped. The red button. It will stop the countdown. 1 minute. Tahoe dropped him and ran to the console. His hands found the red button and pressed it. The countdown stopped at 4 seconds. The station was silent. Ren lowered her weapon and looked around the control room. Dead terrorists everywhere. Her soldiers were wounded, but alive. And in the middle of it all stood a human janitor, covered in blood, swaying on his feet. "Is it over?" she asked. Tahoe nodded slowly. Then his legs gave out and he collapsed. The next few hours were a blur. Medical teams, security forces, reporters. The news spread across the station like fire. A human janitor had stopped the terrorist attack. A human janitor had done what the Galactic Guard could not. Commander Vorn arrived at the control room to claim credit. He stood in front of the cameras and talked about how his brilliant leadership had saved the day. Then Director Hala spoke. She was bandaged and tired, but her voice was strong. "The Galactic Guard did not save us. One man saved us. A human named Kong Tahoe, a janitor. He went alone into the darkness with nothing but a knife, and he brought us back alive." The cameras turned to Tahoe. He was sitting in the corner, letting a medic treat his wounds. He did not look like a hero. He looked like what he was. A tired, broken man who had done terrible things because they needed to be done. Vorn's face was red with shame. The great Galactic Guard, defeated by terrorists, saved by a cleaning man. It was humiliation beyond anything he had ever known. Later, when the cameras were gone, Captain Ren found Tahoe alone in a quiet corridor. She sat down beside him. "Why did you hide?" she asked. "With your skills, you could be anything. A soldier. A leader. Why become a janitor?" Tejo looked at his hands. They were wrapped in bandages now. Because killing is easy. Living with it is hard. I wanted to be something else. Something that did not hurt people. And now. He was quiet for a long moment. Now, I remember what I am. I just have to decide if that is who I want to be. Ren nodded slowly. For what it is worth, I am glad you are here. She left him alone. Sora found him an hour later. She did not say anything. She just sat beside him and held his hand. They stayed like that for a long time. The next morning, Tejo went back to work. He picked up his mop and his cart and started cleaning the corridors. Just like he had done for 6 years. But something was different now. When he walked past, the aliens stepped aside. They nodded to him. They remembered a young Kellen soldier stopped him in the hallway. The boy was barely an adult, fresh from training. Are you him? The soldier asked. The human who stopped the terrorists? Tejo looked at him. I am just a janitor. The soldier shook his head. No, you are more than that. I heard what you did. I did not believe it at first. Humans are supposed to be weak. But you, he struggled to find the words. How did you do it? Tejo thought about the question. He thought about Earth and the contact wars and 11 months of survival against impossible odds. The Galactic Guard trains for war since the day you were born, he said. You are made to be perfect soldiers. Fast, strong, deadly. He started pushing his cart again, moving past the young soldier. But humans? He looked back with eyes that held 1,000 years of struggle. Humans have been training for survival since we crawled out of the mud. We do not win because we are better. We win because we do not know how to stop. The soldier watched him go, a new kind of respect in his eyes. Tejo turned the corner and disappeared into the station. The invisible man was visible now. But in his heart, he was still just a janitor. And that was enough.